recording. All right, well, good morning, everybody. It is Tuesday, April 2nd, just past 8 o'clock in the a.m., and we're here for this week's Energy for Alaska Task Force. And I realized that I slightly underbilled because when we first talked about it, it was just going to be about the ARENA program, but actually there's a whole bunch of education and workforce development offerings going on over there at our friends at ACEP, the Alaska Center for Energy and Power. And so our guest today is Ms. Annalise Klein. She is the principal for ACEP's Education and Workforce Development Suite. And so she's here to give us a presentation on the range. So Ms. Klein, as always, guys, me and Roger here, we'll be trying to monitor the chat box. We'll be trying to monitor for hands, but you know the deal. If you just have any questions, you just go ahead and go for it. Actually, just take yourself off mute and fire away. All right, so without further ado, Ms. Klein, the floor is yours.
Awesome, thank you. And thanks for the invitation to share with you all. I'm excited to give you some bonus content outside of the ARENA program on all the different things that we're threading together with education and workforce development. Can you guys see the slides? Does it look okay?
Yes.
Okay, excellent. Awesome. So would love to share about this program. A lot of these activities that we've been doing span a really long time. But recently, I would say in the last 6 months to a year, we've really been trying to think about, okay, as an umbrella or as a network, how can we let these activities feed off of each other, create some pipelines, utilize relationships that we're developing in certain activities, and help thread some of these things together to develop the education and workforce for implementing these energy innovations that are happening in microgrids across Alaska, developing the workforce, developing the next Alaskans who are interested and care about the future of their home state, and thinking about energy. So I will, let's see, can I keep going? There we go. So I'll do a couple intro slides and then we'll dive in. But a little bit about me. I've been at ACEP for about 3 years now. I'm a program architect there. I build programs, and I am leading this education and workforce development program. My background is in science education. So I have a bachelor's degree in chemistry and English. I have a master's in education with a focus on secondary science. And I taught middle and high school science for 6 years in Hawaii and California, with an emphasis on culturally responsive science and place-based learning design. So what all that means, I was in public schools thinking about, the textbooks and the standards that I needed to align my teaching to, married with these very rich and specific cultural contexts that a lot of my students were coming from. They didn't always naturally integrate. And so what I was really interested in doing was just framing the way that we talked about earth and space science, talked about chemistry in a way that would feed off of the traditions and just rich history that a lot of these students came with from their families. So I really believe I love science. I love studying science. I love teaching it and talking about it. And I think there's so much room for human elements of it and how humans interact with it. And I really believe that one size doesn't always fit all. And there's a lot of ways to bring on a lot of people into these topics of science, of energy, of research and things like that. So that's a little bit about me. Here we were in Kotzebue last summer. Behind me is one of our college interns, Kate, and then Jeremy Casper, who's our director at ACEP. We were in the back of the truck checking out the wind farm out in Kotz. Okay, and then I'll share these slides later so you can deep dive if this is of interest to you. But for those who are not as familiar or need a refresher on ACEP, we're an applied research organization within the University of Alaska Fairbanks. I'm based down in Anchorage with our group of about 7 who are down here on UAA's campus. But there's a lot of different research programs. There's marine energy, there's power systems integration, looking at solar technologies. We've got a team looking at beneficial and equitable electrification that runs through several of our different programs. We have our education and workforce development team. There's technical assistance, there's innovative research and partnerships. We have a testing facility, and there's a lot of publications that are made. And we have a lot of different partners that we work with across these different aspects of what we do.
That's already a great bit of education right there. Again, I didn't realize that ACEP had expanded so over the years.
You know, so when I started, we about 3 years ago, maybe there were 70 people, and now it's pushing 100. There's a lot of really interesting, and this is just a slice of some of the things that are happening. So it's just a really awesome organization where there's lots of people who are really passionate about what they do and building teams to do that work. So.
Yeah, I remember when it was just Gwen.
Yeah, exactly. It has grown since then, and it's been growing fast.
Good.
Awesome. Okay, so kind of agenda situation, what we're doing today. I will give a brief kind of overview of what our goals are, because again, ACEP's a research group. We're not specifically workforce development. We're not specifically education. So what are we doing, and what's our lane, and what we're hoping to support other people in? Tell you a little bit about that. Show you some of how our programs lock together. I mean, that's what I'm really interested in. How are things feeding off of each other and building off of each other? So I'll kind of give a 10,000 foot view of that. And then we're going to dive into 2 different examples of our connective programming. One is kind of this high school to college pipeline that we're working on. And I'll really highlight the college internship program that we've been doing. And then I'll look at also our connective programming for energy champions, people who are working in small communities who are passionate about energy. And I'll highlight arena at that point. So I was kind of, as I was organizing this, I thought, oh, that's kind of funny. You're gonna have to sit through a lot of other things. The carrot at the end is going to be arena, which is why a lot of you showed up to hear. But that is how we will close out. If as you have questions, please feel free to come off mic or throw it in the chat. And love to talk. All right. So before I go to the next slide, I think in analogies. And so I want you to think about Alaska as the kitchen table. And I want you just to think about what might come to mind if I say, you know, Alaska, we want Alaska to be the kitchen table. What are kitchen tables to you? What do they represent? What comes from those? I'll leave it for you if you want to jump in, or otherwise you can just think about it in your head.
Well, you mentioned part of your educational background or your teaching style was to try to make things relevant to the individual. So that's the first thing that comes to mind. Kitchen table usually implies very close to home. Yeah, awesome. Not a sit-down restaurant.
Yeah, it just means talking and visiting, and it's a more casual thing than being in a boardroom. It's more family oriented. So to me, it's kitchen table means family.
Thanks. So as we were, you know, this kind of came to mind in a conversation, a strategic meeting we were having. The kitchen table, exactly. It's a little more casual. Let's say we're having people over and you're sitting around, you're probably bumping elbows, right? You're kind of close. And it's a place to share recipes, to share the way that you do things. And so we really like this idea of thinking about Alaska as a place where people from around the Arctic, from others who are working on microgrids, can see the good work that's going on. Alaska's fairly deregulated, and so the different places can be trying and hacking away at different solutions that work specifically for them, and that's really interesting for people who are in Canada or in, you know, other parts of the world where that might not be so flexible and nimble. So when I think about our workforce and education activities, there's 3 things that I think about for how ACEP can position itself in this work. Number 1, piloting innovative education pathways and partnerships. Because we're part of UAF, we can take some of those risks. Let's get a grant that merges or links these 2 programs or activities together. Let's see what happens. We're not needing to commit to building a program that's lasting 10 years. Let's see what elements of this stick and really work and develop those further. Second, we're wanting to bridge the applied energy research and then Alaska's unique workforce needs, because we're working with utilities across Alaska. We could hear and see what training opportunities are needed, the specific struggles that people have with, hey, you know, this subsistence calendar doesn't match the training that's offered, you know, in this one spot that we really need. We need the job to look a little bit different in our community of 150. The people who are training don't down in California don't understand that reality. So being somebody, a group that can pass along some of that feedback and information and maybe help work to create something that makes more sense for training our workforce. And then finally, this links back to the kitchen table, but highlighting Alaska's successful energy projects to educate and inspire the global energy transition. Everyone has common goals across the globe, and especially in the Arctic, right? Thinking about resiliency and adapting to the different struggles or needs that different communities have. And so Arena will touch on this, but a way that there is really good work going on in Alaska. And this is a really cool opportunity to bring others to Alaska to see what is going on and highlight and showcase and inspire. All right, so here's what I was talking about with that 10,000 foot view. This is a sample of the different activities that either ACEP is directly in charge of, or we partner with other folks. Okay, so if the top left you see, you know, REAP. So REAP as an organization, they do a lot of STEM work with elementary, middle, and high school. We partner with them on some of those things, or we hear about what they're doing. We send some of our students that we're working with over to do some of the workshops that they do. We also have these energy clubs, these T3 energy clubs, and partner with Teaching Through Technology, which I'll talk more about in a little bit. But getting those high school kids interested and curious and talking about some of these energy concepts that they see in their communities. We have makerspace activities where we work with T3 using 3D printers, learning how to solder, looking at what else do they do? Growth mindset and problem-based learning. And some of that then feeds into our internship programs, opportunities for microgrid boot camps. We have Alaska Fellows and Sea Grant Fellows partnering with those programs who bring people in after college to work in our organization for a year or two. We have different individual trainings that we partner with Chandler Kemp at the Bristol Bay campus at UAF. We work with the Alaska Technical Center up in Kotzebue on some of their trainings. We've got Arena and ELA, the Energy Leadership Accelerator that we're launching, and putting together an alumni of energy champions. So the idea of this picture is, hey, there's all these different things that are run by different people. Some of them are on a longer trajectory, others are kind of smaller year or two projects, but they link together if we think about where people are on their pathway to a career in energy. And we want to be able to have something that's really flexible that allows lots of on-ramps and off-ramps depending on where students are and what their specific interests are in that moment.
Microgrid boot camps?
Microgrid boot camps. Yeah. So we've done those. That's a great example of one that has, you know, gone through a couple iterations. We've got some plans in the future. It's not something that we're routinely offering yet. But the scope of that is like a 1 week opportunity for a certain audience. It could be undergrads who are studying energy. So our interns have gone through the boot camp before. It could be utility workers. It could be people in industry or just community members coming together and just learning, like, what is a microgrid? And really hands-on. So being able to build, to work on things under the guidance of some folks who know what we're doing and not going to blow things up. This last microgrid boot camp, we did part of it on campus at UAF. So there were some lectures and some hands-on elements there. We had Phil White from UAF come and talk about the history of energy in Alaska to build some of that social context. And then we headed out to the Galea Spirit Camp to be able to be on the Tanana River and to see a little microgrid in Fairbanks in action. And so they're flexible. We have a couple different ideas for thinking about and introducing marine energy, going down to our Tanana River test site. But we're really hoping to develop this as a model to introduce a certain concept within energy and a certain audience who needs and is interested in playing around and just building more exposure.
Cool.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. All right, and go to the next slide.
And again, I would remind the assemblage, if you have any questions, comments, please feel free. It's not the Jomo Stewart show. So yeah, please just fire away.
Absolutely. I talk fast too, so sometimes you got to slip in when I'm taking a breath. So I'll try to leave some space, but feel free to jump in. All right, so I'm going to split this last part into two pieces. So I want to just highlight the ways that we're wanting to connect a couple different programs together. The first one we'll look at is at the high school to college level, and the next one will be looking at energy champions. So those are, again, people who are in the workforce or who are in a community. They got a job. They're not in school right now. All right, lots of words. So I'm going to pick and choose some pieces. If you look at the top half of this screen, the T3 Energy Club. So we partner with Teaching Through Technology, which is a hands-on education, STEM education group that is on campus at UAF. And they work with students through the Upward Bound community mostly. So those are students in high school who are preparing for and interested in going to college. And so ACEP partners with T3 to do these energy clubs. And so we have these high school students from villages in Alaska, from Southeast. There's T3 clubs out in Hawaii, which is kind of cool. And there's some really interesting similarities between the islanded experiences that a lot of students in Alaska and Hawaii have. But we bring them together to talk about energy concepts and to do some like weekend workshops in order to understand the energy challenges that their communities face, and then ways that we can work on solving those challenges. So you can see in the pictures here, they were doing a home energy efficiency weekend. And so they were working, this was with, I think, Chandler Kemp and the Dillingham, Bristol Bay campus, but really hands-on, asking some questions and understanding the tools that are needed to answer those questions, and then to provide recommendations to their communities about ways that they can become more energy efficient, or work on some of the problems that they probably hear their adults in their families talking about, whether it's the electric bills or the fires that happened in Maui, right, that were related to the utilities that were there. So it's just a really fun, exciting group of kids. This coming weekend, actually, we're bringing a group to Anchorage, and it's going to be a solar installation training. And so they're going to partner with some of our solar researchers here on campus, and they're going to build a little mini microgrid and learn about the different ways that power goes in and out of the grid. They're going to go check out someone's house and work on a solar residential size solar panel. But it's a really fun way. There's kids that it's sticky for them. They get really excited about it. And it's oftentimes kids who wouldn't have necessarily, gravitated towards a semester long energy course or got really excited about AC or DC current. So I love the work that we do with this program. So that can feed into our ACEP internship program. So this is a summer research opportunity for undergraduate students. Mostly it's engineers, but we've been expanding. We have environmental science and physics and math. This year, we're going to have some more humanities-based students who are working with us to think about visual storytelling and translating some of the research that we do so that community members can really access and get excited about it. It's 10 weeks. They come to Fairbanks. They have mentorship with an ACEP researcher. And there's a lot of variety of the types of projects that we do. And it's been really exciting to see this grow. This year we had six, actually I'm going to talk about it in a minute. We had 16 positions, and we had over 130 applicants from all across both Alaska and the lower 48. And so it's been really awesome to see that excitement grow for this program. But we link it because sometimes we have students who have been in T3 who have done these energy clubs. And so, hey, if we know that there's a student who has been actively engaged in these questions they're from Alaska, we're going to prioritize their application when they come into our program. We work with those educators. We know those students oftentimes, and we want to be able to offer them the next step once they come to college and want to continue to dive deeper into these concepts.
Well, I'm going to steal that link. So Tanya Kluk has posted in the chat a link to T3 at Alaska
Awesome.
or at UAF.
Oh, cool. Oh, that's
actually,
awesome.
I'm going to steal that link and send it to my kid.
Yes, absolutely.
So thanks, Tanya.
You totally should. Dane and his people are awesome to work with. He's in like my probably top 4 favorite coworkers ever. So yeah, and T3 does really, really awesome work.
Cool.
Awesome. Thank you. Yeah, I came up to Alaska because I got to work for the summer for T3, and that kind of blew my mind. And I said, I need to keep hanging out in this space.
Y'all might get me back into college.
Yeah. Hey, come hang out. So I just want to talk a little bit more about our internship students, as well as, open the door for if you have some interest in engaging with students. We have a group of them here every summer, and thinking about, I don't know, the economics or the workforce ideas, whatever you guys are doing in this space. I like to create programming for our students so that it's not just, sitting and doing that little project. Understand within a larger context of what are you doing and what's happening. So last summer's cohort, we had, again, a wide variety of majors coming from a lot of different schools. You can scan that and see what pops out. And then I love our cohort just is a wide variety of backgrounds and students. So we've really tried to do kind of half and half Alaska residents and first time to Alaska students. And they have a lot to learn from each other. So even though they're not all working on the same projects, they're, living in the same dorm, going to exploring Fairbanks together, and can give different perspectives to the experiences that they're having that summer that I think are really important. So it's just been a really fun way to get a whole bunch of students together. Okay.
I'm interrupting quickly just to let people know that T3 is funded through Upward Bound, and Upward Bound is TRIO funding, which is deliberately aimed at getting people who are either from first generation attending college, people whose parents are first generation Americans, or people who come from a socioeconomic background that doesn't necessarily attend college. So this means that they're actually being successful in what the federal government told them they're supposed to use the money to do. Just to, give a little bit more understanding about why this actually, they're doing what they said they should.
Mm-hmm. And I think the nice thing about then taking, T3, who is very closely tied, right, to Upward Bound and TRIO, like you said, in that specific mission, and create a feeder into the ACEP internship program, which, while our team really wants to create those opportunities and have it a really diverse cohort, it's not, our funding is not specifically tied to that specific student population. It just allows those students to have another opportunity that isn't just in the TRIO suite of things. But in the same way, it's still safe. You have people who know a lot of the educators or people where they have been already. So it's just been a really fun way to feed and tie some of these programs together.
Thanks, Tanya. Thanks, Annalise.
All right. Any other questions or thoughts on kind of the high school to college internship? We can also circle back.
Well, I just didn't hear much about the high school component.
Yeah.
Or is that what you were talking about before? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I don't have
Collaboration of high
slides
school
on it
students.
right now. I don't have slides on it in this slideshow, but I can talk just a little bit more about it. So we have at ACEP, one of the other things I work on is this community innovation hub, and our pilot hub communities are Kotzebue and Cordova. And so the innovation hub is places where we've done a lot of work and partnerships with the utilities for 10 years. And there's a lot of really interesting, innovative work. There's a lot of people who are highly motivated and have just done so much to move their communities into having energy systems that are reliable and inspiring, right? So we've done a lot on the research and power systems integration and that work for a long time. And by partnering with T3, there are now T3 clubs in Kotzebue and Cordova that are really more focused on energy related concepts. And so we can open that opportunity for students in that community to go, hey, like, do you know, you see those wind turbines all the time. Do you know what they do? You know why it's special? You know why, how this happened? And just connect like community needs and utility conversations, engage some students in just some general concepts, keeping it really hands-on and exploratory. And then hopefully that creates, a workforce eventually when the utility needs, 1 or 2 linemen or 1 or 2 fill in the blank. Hey, if they already have a little bit of a relationship with some high school students in that area, we think that could be a really exciting thing. So that's like one example of that. I know there's a T3 club as well in North Pole. And so I think that's the one that's closest in Fairbanks. So.
Oh,
yeah.
Cool. Okay. So there is a local branch as well.
Yeah. So, and I can pull together some more information.
No, it was cool. That was slightly self-serving. I've got a high schooler and a college kid.
Yeah.
So
No,
I'm
absolutely.
sending links.
Yep, totally. All right. And then this other piece here, it finally is, we'll talk a little bit about ARENA. So thinking about our, beyond school, what about the people who are in the workforce? And so the Arctic Remote Energy Networks Academy, which is ARENA. This is our international knowledge sharing program for energy champions who are working in remote northern communities to come together on 3 different on-sites, 1 in Alaska, 1 in Canada, and 1 in Iceland, and to tour projects that have been successful and kind of, pop open the hood and take a look at what's going on, talk to the people who implemented those projects and say, what was frustrating? How did you get this idea? Was it as easy as, it looks? And they're like, no, here are all the ways that, things fell apart or we had to improvise, and just an opportunity for people to connect with each other on a shared interest and shared community context, as well as exchange some skills and mentorship, thinking about local energy development. And so that has been, we're about to do our 3rd cohort. We had 1 in 2017 and 1 in 2022 to 2023. And the application closes tomorrow. So if you know of anybody who is in a rural community and you think they would be a good applicant, please send this along to them. And if you need a couple days, if they're interested and can't make tomorrow's deadline, just shoot me an email because we would love to cultivate this cohort to be a representative of what is going on in Alaska, as well as just the broader Arctic. So I am going to dive into this a little bit more, ARENA specifically, in a minute, but in terms of thinking about how it connects to other programming, we recently were awarded a grant from the National Science Foundation to do an energy leadership accelerator. And so this is going to be for folks who have already completed ARENA and done this before, as well as it's going to be a mix. Alumni of this program, plus some people who haven't ever done this before, because we want there to be this like cohort that is heterogeneous and has some people have more experience. Other people are brand new to thinking about developing their own energy projects in their community, because I think there's a lot of really good mentorship, informal mentorship that can happen within a cohort. Instead of it just being here's your formal mentor and here you're in the cohort and you're just here to learn, right? So we're developing this ELA program, and it'll be 1 year, focused on specifically how do we develop the workforce development to support the new technologies that we're adopting. And for remote islanded communities, that's going to look different than like rural communities in California or somewhere that's more connected to a larger grid. And so we want to bring people together who are thinking about this, maybe who are like mid-level management for their utilities or for their communities. And it's going to be a lot of virtual engagement and online discussions and courses that they can take, And then we're going to come together next May for a Alaska Leadership Lab. And it'll be 2 weeks in Alaska where we're visiting communities. The plan right now is Kotzebue and Cordova, which were our innovation hub communities, where they can see and talk to practitioners and just discuss more about what needs to be done or what could be done to develop the workforces for their communities.
Awesome.
All right, so finally, I have a couple slides on ARENA. This is from a different presentation, but I felt like they were helpful just to get a taste of what this ARENA is and to see how Fairbanks is highlighted in it. So circumpolar knowledge sharing program, it's for remote community energy champions to learn from one another and to tour these different renewable systems that are deployed in the north. This was Gwen's brainchild back in, I guess before 2017, but the pilot was in 2017, and it was co-led by the US, Canada, Iceland, Finland, and the Aleut International Corporation. And it's endorsed by the Sustainable Working Group of the Arctic Council. So they oversee this program. We have done a second iteration, which was 22 to 23. And yeah, I'll just kind of keep going on this. The structure is 3 specific on-sites in Canada, Alaska, and Iceland. And we focus on thinking about how you envision, plan, and execute projects that are in the north. And so when we, was it last year? Yeah, last year we were in Fairbanks. And so that we talked with people, I think this is down at the Morris Thompson Center. We looked at Indigenous leadership. We toured UAF and talked about the researchers and facilities that ACEP has. We went to our Power Systems Integration Lab. We visited the Cold Climate Housing Research Center. We went to Chena Hot Springs to look at the geothermal setup there. We're really wanting to ground everything in the political, cultural, historical context, as well as looking at the technical elements. We also had a workshop by some folks at ACEP looking at project management. And then we put everyone on a plane. We went up to Kotzebue and we then looked at the solar and wind that are up there. We brought in a lot of different community members and stakeholders in that region who are working on energy to hear from them and just have roundtable discussions. And we looked at the water treatment plants. They were, building their new plant when we were there. So we talked to folks about that, looked at the seawall erosion project, and just really got a glimpse of different things that had been going on in Kotzebue. And then briefly, we also went to Iceland, and that was to look at, hey, 50 years ago, they made this really big pivot. They wanted to invest in and develop geothermal. What does it look like now? What do the economics look like? What does a successful and healthy, thriving community look like once they took that risk and developed those energy systems? So that was a pretty interesting and inspiring trip to just see all the ways that they are continuing to innovate. And then finally, we closed with going to the Yukon Territory in Canada. We went to Whitehorse and then up to Old Crow. And we looked at community-based energy development, talked a lot about how you negotiate between the utilities, the tribe, other community members, commercial industry leaders who come and work on these projects as well, and focus mostly on solar, biomass, and hydropower. All right. So the awesome thing is for these cohorts, between those 3 on-sites, they're interacting with a ton of people and building their network. Nearly 50 different organizations, about 100 different people that they were all able to meet. And so that's, I think, the power of ARENA, that someone who's in a remote community who doesn't necessarily get to have all of those in-person networking opportunities, by being a part of this program, are able to get really connected with a lot of other people. And it just was, I think, a really positive experience when we collected quotes from folks in this last round. For some people who are working in, we had a couple people who are working in like Anchorage and Montreal, who are pushing into and doing a lot of work in remote communities. They said, hey, I learned a lot about community engagement and learning how things work and how to navigate those situations by being able to be a part of this program. But we also just created an opportunity. People said, hey, if I have to go negotiate or something, I can call someone up who has that other perspective now and workshop this and role play and get an idea of how to be successful in the conversations that I need to have in my job. And finally, I love this last quote. My local government is scared of failure. And through this program, I have a safe place to ask questions and discuss lessons learned from failed attempts, because failure is important, but sometimes communities can't absorb that. And so this is a great opportunity for people to learn from projects that have already been completed.
Pitfalls and best practices.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So we have investments in our alumni network and building those cohorts. This next one is open now. I'll also say, for those of you who are in Fairbanks, feel free to reach out if you would like to engage with the cohort, because they will be coming up to Alaska in end of July, early August. And then we also have this Energy Leadership Accelerator that we're going to be launching and opening applications up for this fall, to have another round of people who are interested in wanting to talk specifically about workforce development. And it's going to be expanded not just for folks in the Arctic, but we want to engage other remote islanded communities across the Pacific Rim. All right, so I'm going to pause it there. I know I threw a lot of information at you, but we're really excited about the different things that are going on. And as you could tell, it's partnered with so many other organizations and individuals and community members in Alaska. So we're pretty stoked about the things that are happening, and we're excited to just keep collaborating and seeing what new things are happening in the future.
Well, your excitement is justified. You all are doing a lot of great stuff. I guess my first question, yeah, I guess my first question would be, how can an organization like FEDC participate or help out? Like how do you solicit for applicants and where?
Yeah, that's a opportunity for us. I think we have our ACEP newsletter that goes out, and that's kind of a big way for us in social media for us to push out these opportunities. But then we just have a massive advertising partnership database that we're sending blasts to. So if you would like to join that or be a part of that, you can email me and I can plug you in. The general ACEP newsletter is a really good place. We always push things out through there. But if you would like specifically for kind of these workforce development things, absolutely let me know. I think also you talked a little bit about or identified the boot camp, like what is that? And we would really like that to not just be for students, community members and businesses, and providing, I think, a really rich, multifaceted perspective is a great opportunity for boot camps. And so if that's something you might be interested in, again, I'm kind of big on, let's chat for 30 minutes and I just want to hear, where are you from? What is your interests? And there's always kind of interesting things that bubble up from that.
Okay, well, the hands are flying up. So why don't we start, we'll do them in order, at least order when I saw them. So Mayor Matherly, please.
Yeah, hey, Annalise, I really liked this presentation a lot.
Oh, good.
I do, and I've heard of it on the peripheral many times. Never did any kind of a deep dive. And one of the things that I liked that what you said was at the very, very end, when you talked about failure and learning from that. So many times a lot of people don't hear that, or they think it's really a terrible thing. But what's the Michael Jordan thing? He missed more shots than he made, and so there's a lot of truth to that. So when you're working with these kinds of things and you're teaching youngsters today or students about this kind of thing, without failure, you don't really have success. And so I mean, all of it was good and really good information, but I just wanted to just share that thought with you that I really like that. And I have 6 kids, and I did tell them about failure, and failure is an amazing thing to go through. It's how you pick yourself up after it or what you do with it that really counts. So don't be afraid of it. So anyway, no specific questions, just a comment in general. You obviously are very passionate about it, which I think is great, but I really like that comment you made. So thank you for that.
Yeah, awesome. And I think T3 does a great job of that. They call it growth mindset. So it's not
Oh.
about, getting it right that first time. When you fail, what is that growth mindset that's going to propel you to be able to look honestly at the way that you failed instead of just shoving it aside or being quiet and embarrassed about it and go, okay, how can I grow from this? And how can I maybe share it with others so that they can also learn from it? And I think there are opportunities for that at the high school level, but as soon as we start to move into college and grad school or like the working world, the failure is not as warmly accepted or normed to still experience and be honest about. And so that's great to hear that that is something that stood out to you.
Well, I work in politics, so I deal with failure and success and
Yeah.
all the time, and it's all what we do with it. Really,
Mhm.
honestly, it really, really is. And I don't care how old we are, we're
Yeah.
going to have ups and downs and failures and successes. And Jomo and I talk about those kinds of things every now and then, especially on the political realm. You don't always win, but you come back and you try to negotiate and do things and find other paths and other ways to go about things. So I appreciate your comments. Thank you.
Mhm.
All right. Speaking of mayors, Doug, your hand's up.
Hey, thanks a lot, Annalise. I appreciate the lots of information that you provided, and I feel Jim's voice, whether it's politics or business or whatever. We do have to have some failure in order to sharpen ourselves a little bit more. But now my question is ACEP effectively reaching out to our rural school districts? I work for Minto, the village of Minto, well, the Native Village Corporation. So I'm wondering if our school, which has maybe 60 students in it, has this information in a way that encourages them to participate. It's one thing if a teacher, as you know, gets bombarded with all sorts of opportunities for their kids. It's another when the steps forward are made. To give an example, I've been encouraging the National Guard to be out in Minto quite a bit because they provide training for our kids, talking about workforce development. Right now, the tribe is working on energy projects, and AVEC, they're a member of AVEC, and they have grants for solar and wind, I think, at least solar. So, and AVEC is going to be changing out their generators. But I know Minto is not alone, but excuse me, because I work for them. I want to make sure that they've had this opportunity. We need kids to get excited about the sciences, to get excited about energy and technology, and because this is the future. We can't expand business opportunities without kids who have great technical skills, and this may take a generation to really develop. But can you speak a little bit more to that? It kind of glums onto Jomo's question, but more specific.
Yeah, no, I think that's a really great question. And I think you already mentioned it, but I always, in the back of my mind, because I was a public school teacher in Title I schools for 6 years, I got the onslaught of like, here's this random thing, da 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 da. And or some people might want to push in and say, we have a grant, we created this like 1 day or 2 week thing. Can we come and present to your students? And so I think sometimes it looks like a little bit of a slow rollout because the T3 programs for the most part go through either upward bound communities in Alaska or we're trying this model outside of an upward bound community. So, not that secured funding or student or even coach guaranteed. That's what we're trying to experiment with this community innovation hub. Kotzebue doesn't have an upward bound program. They got some students who might be interested in these concepts. There's definitely a need to get students interested, and there's cool energy projects to like look at there. Can we make this model work outside of the skeleton of upward bound that has been really helpful. And so I think that's what we're working on, and we're seeing just a lot of excitement and a lot of really good things. And the T3 team has just worked so incredibly hard. And they're a small team. They're a couple people who are working all the time on this stuff. So I think sustainability is something that's really important, and making sure that the people and communities that we are engaging with are we're in it for the long haul, and as long as they want to be working in this. So that being said, I think there are definitely opportunities to engage with T3. We want to expand the opportunities for, these weekend boot camps or workshops where they're learning about solar and home heating. And so right now, I think the answer is, yeah, shoot me an email. I can connect you with T3, but we're also just in this early phase of, hey, it's been maybe 2 years where we've been trying this. There seem to be some really good things coming out of it. There are also some lessons that we're learning in terms of what do we need, and what does the community need in place in order to make that partnership sustainable, so that it's not just let's try it for a year and then it kind of fizzles out. So having school administration who are really excited about this is always really great. Having a variety of partners, so a utility person, a school person, an industry or business that wants to hire students who go through some of this T3 training. Maybe if they have a little badge or credential of going through some of this programming, like what's next? What do they get to do with that? How do they get to see that this can build on itself? So yeah, again, I think.
So let me help fine tune that a little bit, because you're talking to the business side. I do not work in the school, and it's 2.5 hour drive away. So I guess my question is, what kind of outreach to the Yukon Kuskokwim or to AVEC or to some of the industry partners as well as the school districts?
Yeah.
Do you have a plan for that outreach?
I think we're interested in developing a plan for that. The last 2 years where we have been piloting this has been through this community innovation hub. And that funding was through the Office of Naval Research, which gave us a lot of flexibility to work with partners we already have and try a couple new things. So we're not currently working with AVEC on the education piece.
I would encourage you to do that, because they are the ones who are going to benefit from the workforce development, and they'll have people in the villages, not only AVEC, but its counterpart. What's the other large rural co-op? But any of these larger rural utilities that are going to benefit from the workforce development angle and get kids into it. That's going to help them out. And I would think that they would maybe even have some budget. So I'd encourage you all to outreach to them, as well as, get the YK school district. It's in Fairbanks. It's close to ACEP, UAF. And I know you're in Anchorage, but just some ideas. I can put out the word, but I'm even more removed from it than you are.
Yeah, no, I think that is a really good point. And I think that is definitely on the horizon in terms of where we would like to support people like AVEC who are training that workforce and can identify those needs. And we have, I know Rob Benson is working with REAP on a People in Power program. They're going to different AVEC communities, interviewing utilities, identifying what trainings they have access to, what trainings they need. So I think there is some of that on the workforce side. And again, in terms of capacity right now, if AVEC said, hey, we got 50 kids, we're ready to go, we don't necessarily have the ability to just spring that into action. But I think there's some really good pipelines that are starting to be created that it would be great to start to have those conversations with folks there to see where that could go.
Thanks.
Yeah, thank you.
Right on. Okay, well, we are nearing the top of the hour. Again, this has been a great presentation and a lot of good work going on. I would let everyone know that Ms. Klukas put a few more links into the chat, which I actually have just been using. So yeah, if you want to sign up for the ACEP newsletter, there's a link right now in the chat, as well as the T3 newsletter. And so, yeah, we'll hang out just a few more minutes if anybody wants to go ahead and get themselves on those lists right now. I just did it. I wasn't wholly distracted. I was actually signed up for newsletters. All right. Well, if we have no further questions, I guess we'll go ahead and stop the share. Boom. All right. Well, again, Ms. Klein, great to hear about ACEP and its growth. I didn't realize we'd actually gone pan-state. I knew that the work was always going on all over the state, but it's nice to know that, again, we now have a footprint down at UAA. And so
Yeah,
nice to see
Anchorage and Juneau as well. We have a couple folks. So yeah, we're dotted around Alaska.
Right on. All right. So at all the major campuses, super.
Yeah. So
And
thank
what
you
I
so
thought
much.
I just heard, is it something about they're going to be testing out, and I'll probably have to circle around back to ACEP. I thought I heard on the radio that they're going to be doing a demonstration deployment of in Runner River.
Yeah, in Galena.
In Galena sometime soon.
Yeah, yeah. And so there's some fun education and T3 conversations happening over there as well, but they just received some really awesome funding to get to do a demonstration over there, and working with Sega, what is that? Sustainable Energy, Galena, Alaska, and Tim Kauke.
Right on. Again, the educational opportunities continue. So, Mr. Bergerath, final word?
Very nice presentation. You're doing good work, and it's good to see people getting involved.
Awesome.
And yeah, anything we can do to help, again, now that I've got the newsletter, as we see things that, could use some help pushing out, we will help push them out.
Awesome. Thank you so much. It was great to chat with you guys. I appreciate your engagement and opportunity to chat.
And thank you, Miss Brittany Smart, for getting us together. Yeah. All right. Well, everybody, thank you so much. Have a great rest of your Tuesday. I don't know what I have in store for us, but of course, I'll be letting you know. If there's nothing else, though, yeah, everybody, again, just have a great rest of your day, great rest of your week, and we'll see you soon for the next Energy for All Alaska Task Force.